Yes. So basically, I mean, the idea is to have like an analytics session like weekly, and the whole idea of the analytics session is, I mean, it's not a class or something like that. It's just a bit of like sharing or looking for ways to collaborate, to basically push ourselves like, I mean, to another level. I mean, in our journey for, I mean, to master data in particular. So I've kind of created the content. I mean, the content is like based on like a bit of motivation, and then we'll have a few points, and then why data, and then we have like a few more points, and we can look at data tools and who should learn what, and then how I will prepare to be a data analyst personally. I mean, so maybe like you could also like put it like into your like maybe if you think it makes sense. Then also and then we could also talk about like what is this series about. So yes, so basically the motivation really is like to assist each other to improve in our data ambitions. Like I mean we, I mean I think everybody is here is probably trying to get into data, and yeah, and we have different ambitions as to like okay how, I mean what role we want to go into, and what stage of our process we are already into. Maybe you already have like you've already done some things in data, or maybe you're already in data or something like that, and you want to like figure out like okay, I mean maybe you can get a few 1 or 2 points from this type of interactions, or yeah, and we could also do a lot of things that I will share later. And then so now we have a group. We have a group um, that this is the analytics group basically. That's the group on Telegram. So this group we this is like the group, and this analytics weekly series is just this. So like I mean it's very likely. I mean it's possible that we might have people who maybe like might see this analytics weekly series as maybe not so like advanced enough for them. So, I mean, we can also still do a lot of things within this group. So, this analytics weekly series is just like a subset of the whole group. It's just, I mean, we can do a lot of things with the group. So, then we can go to the next slide. So, first, I just like to clear a few things. So, I mean, this is not a. So, the first thing is this a classroom or a training? No, I'm not a teacher. I'm not a lecturer. I mean, this is just an opportunity to demystify and point maybe directions. So, is this series for experts or by an expert? No, I'm not. I'm also on the journey of learning as well. What is this weekly series about? The weekly series is a subsection of, I mean, possible things we can do in the group. Like, I mean, the group we can share information and do that, 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 you know. And so you can feel free to join the series. Also, I mean, the slide is not perfect. Like it's a living slide. I just made it. And then the main idea of this group is just to create. I mean, this series is to create a knowledge bank that can be updated by anyone trying to get into the field of data. I mean, it can be updated by anyone for people that are trying to get into the field of data. So it's just like a knowledge bank that, okay, maybe people who are not here today can go back and refer to, and just read and maybe just watch the video, and also maybe like just use the opportunity to also get like some information that, like, I mean, imagine like you're just coming to, I mean, you're just coming up maybe abroad, for instance, or you're just coming into the industry. You might just be wondering, what is this data thing? Like, I mean, people are just saying data. Like, it's very, very confusing until maybe you start working with it. So it's just to like demystify and make people feel a bit more, I mean, comfortable with it, and see that it's not really as complex or as difficult, or it doesn't have to be as difficult as like it's all like kind of seem. So basically, why data? So the truth is, I kind of used, I mean, I kind of saw a video on YouTube. I've added the link um, that basically has this lady called Rebecca Nugget basically talking about the fact that why we are all data scientists. So at the end of the day, we are all data scientists. Um, and she made an example that even I kind of related with. Um, she said her grandmother, and I also can see my grandmother, who's not like literate, is also a data scientist. The reason why we are all a data scientists is because we kind of like deal with numbers on our daily. We kind of do a bit of planning. We kind of do a bit of like you know we kind of maybe calculate our money, or we kind of budget some kind of spending and all those kind of things. So in between, we kind of work with data. Also, like if you want to cross the road as well, for instance, you would have to judge like, okay, when is the right time to cross the road. So you probably have to do some calculation. I mean, like in within you, to identify like, okay, this is the right time to cross the road. You have to consider the speed of the coming vehicle. If the speed is like, if you can beat the speed, we can kind of cross the road before this car gets to you. So you have to do a lot of calculation. Like, it's kind of a complex calculation. And so this basically means like, everybody is a data scientist at the end of the day. Like, we do a lot of these calculations. Some of them we even do unconsciously. So yes, and so basically, if everybody is a data scientist, you can even imagine that every business needs some kind of data, because if you as a person probably does your budgeting, the business too is doing their budgeting. If maybe at the end of the day you're also trying to like look at your like how much you have spent, you know, that means that also like businesses do that. But the thing is, businesses even do more than that, because they are very conscious of every decision they take, and so the only way they can really track these decisions that they are taking is by looking at the data. So they actually look at the data for virtually everything, and this is why data is very important, and this is why like companies are recruiting for data, and there's a huge demand for data, for data scientists, data analysts, data engineers, and then basically we just go in on. So yeah, so basically this is like the kind of tree of like what the data lives. The kind of data, the kind of use of data that you can use. This place represents like the value. So what is the value you can get from the data, and then this represents like the complexity. How difficult is it to actually do like this type of data? So there are different type of data analysis here, right? So there are different types of analytics here, and so the more you go to this side, which is the right, basically you have it much more difficult, and then the more you can go on top, is the more value you get. So basically, it's like the better, the more value, the more difficulty that you get. So the first part is the descriptive data. So the descriptive data now is like basically you are looking at what happened in the past. So what is happening in the past? You basically maybe want to know like how much have we spent, or how much money did we make, or what is like how is our business performing, and all this type of things. This is where you do your descriptive analysis, and it's like the easiest. It's the easiest part of analysis. It's very very easy, and it's easy to visualize. Now then you have diagnostic analytics. So diagnostic analysis is just basically like and actually the terminologies don't really matter, because at the end of the day, the idea is just to be able to do this stuff. This type of analysis. But but then anyways, we'll still talk about the terminologies a bit. So basically, like you have diagnostic. So diagnostic is like when you are trying to diagnose like maybe like a patient or stuff like this. So in between the type of analysis you do most here, it's also very similar to the descriptive analysis, because you're also most likely looking in the past. But in this case, what you are doing is you are trying to understand why things are happening. So for instance, maybe you are trying to compare like maybe last year's performance to this year's performance. So then you try to see like, okay, is the performance getting better, or is the performance worsening? So when you do that, you do that in the descriptive, where you basically look at what happened, and then when you see like, okay, this is what happened, Then you have to now try to understand, like, okay, why is this thing happening? Is it maybe if you have a store and maybe the sales is dropping, maybe you sell a couple of items, you want to understand maybe, maybe it's a certain item that used to sell a lot before that stopped selling. Maybe that's the reason why your sales is dropping, or maybe like it's overboard that all your sales is basically dropping, and then maybe you have to investigate maybe something other than just one particular item. So basically here you start asking questions, and maybe you might come and ask like a lot of questions to get to the root cause. So you just want to go deep, 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 deep to get the root cause in this case. So then this is like kind of relatively easy, and you get some value from it. So here you just basically like do like descriptive, and then you do diagnostic together. Now, what is predictive? Predictive is basically you trying to like tell what is likely to happen. Now, in the real sense, before you go to predictive, you also need to understand a bit of descriptive. So usually, like descriptive is like one of the most like important parts. You have to understand how things are working and all these kind of things. Do like a lot of EDA here, and then when you understand, then you can use that. You can use the historical trend to predict what is going to happen. Like, everybody is a data scientist here, because also we tend to predict things that is going to likely happen. So we can, maybe for instance, we can play like a betting game or something like this based on what we think. Okay, maybe Manu is playing like maybe a certain club, and we think based on the past record, or based on the past maybe players that they have, there is a chance that they would win. So this is exactly what is happening at predictive. This is exactly what is happening, that you can be able to predict what is going to happen. Then prescriptive is just very much like predictive, but prescriptive is being like it's just being like maybe like proactive. So like maybe you'll be able to like tell the business what to do next, before it happens. So like maybe you'll be able to like advise the business, like by using maybe doing some kind of analytics, and telling them, okay, if you don't do this, like we have heard like these things happen like a couple of times, where you have like, even when COVID um was spreading like wildfire, and like maybe people, or maybe some bodies basically came and said something like, if COVID does not, like, if we don't curb COVID on time, then maybe like we'll have like maybe 10,000 people that will have it. Like, they'll just basically come up with this type of like they'll come up with these predictions, that so maybe this is what we can do, but if we don't do this, this is what is likely to happen. So this is prescriptive, and this is like the most difficult part of like analytics. Over here you have like your data analyst. You have your data analyst here. You probably also have your data analyst here a lot. Even though you might, depending on the company, you can also have your data scientist around here. And then you have more of your data scientist here, but also depending on the type of company, you have your data analyst here as well. So here and here, 2 and 3, you can maybe have your data analyst and your data scientist. It's very possible.
I'm sorry, I can't see your mouse. Are you trying to point
Yeah,
at
I'm
something?
pointing my mouse. Okay, so yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like at 2, which is diagnostic, and 3, you can find your data analyst and your data scientist there. But ideal, I cannot say anything is ideal, but like it's more likely for you to find your data scientist in 3 than in 2. But it's possible that you also find your data scientist doing 2. Then it's possible for you to also find your data analyst doing 3, but it's not likely that you find him doing 3 that most of the time. Like, you can say like 90% of the work he's going to do is going to be 1 and 2, basically. And so like 3 and 4 will be done by the data scientist, ideally. Now, yeah, because a lot of things is changing, and a lot of things can happen, basically. So now a few more points. Do I need a data degree to play a role in data? No. A couple of courses and practice could get you there faster, and even better than someone that has the data degree. Because the thing is like this is the case because like there are some things that I mean like if you go through an academic setting, the chances is that you get academic knowledge, and academic knowledge is very very difficult from it's very very different from the practical at times. And I mean in this case usually it is. So you don't necessarily have to have like a data degree for you to practice. It's not necessary. I can't yet code. Can I already get into data role? Yes, you can. However, programming will give you an edge. So you can actually get into data roles without even being able to code, for sure. And I'm not good enough with statistics. Can I already get data roles? Yes, you just need basic statistics understanding to start like a data role, like to at least get into a data analyst, business analyst. I mean, more like business analyst and all this type of roles. Like you don't necessarily need to have the most complex stats. You don't have to like be a master of stats. But obviously, the better stats you have, the better chance you have. And the better stats you have, the better you can also explore other areas. The better programming you have, the more you can explore other areas. I mean, the degree, I'm not really sure if you really like it. Does the degree does not limit anything. Yeah, maybe if it's in your CV, then maybe it can give an edge to at least get an interview, but not necessarily. The understanding is much more important. So, what are the data activities and the tools? So, what are the data activities that I mean that a typical data project looks like? So, for a typical data project, I mean it could include more, but at this point, I could just say this is a bit opinionated by maybe what I've like seen, or maybe what I've read, or maybe what I've heard, and it's also possible that maybe I skipped some part. But usually, like a data project might most likely start from data requirements. So, like in the data requirement stage, what you're basically doing is you're going to meet the business because like it's a very service oriented like work. So basically, I mean, data people play a role of supporting the business. So the business is trying to do their business, they're trying to take decisions. So as a data person, you're just basically guiding them that okay, like this is the numbers, this is what happened yesterday. Like I mean, this is when we lost maybe some certain amount, or maybe we noticed that some customers stopped patronizing us. So maybe they can maybe if it's for marketing, they could maybe go into some kind of marketing, or maybe they could take some decisions that is going to prevent the business from like crashing, or maybe that's going to help the business to even grow. So here you meet the business and you kind of like get the requirements, try to understand their business requirements and all that stuff like for the project or something like this. And then when you understand it, it basically helps you to know what kind of data you will get. And then I mean there you basically collect the data, and then you clean the data, and then you have the data storage. Maybe in some cases you might store the data, you know and in some cases you do not store the data, you just go into exploratory data analysis. um, I will explain why you in some cases you might not store the data. So basically you can go from data cleaning to exploratory data analysis, and also you can go from data storage to exploratory data analysis. It's possible. So, like, what is exploratory data analysis? Exploratory data analysis is just where you actually look at, maybe you're noting the trends, you're doing the actual data analysis itself. You're looking at maybe trends, you're looking at, like, maybe for instance, if it's a store, maybe you're looking at, like, how much are they selling per maybe different types of items. So, for instance, it could have like an adult section, child section, so they can have different categories of goods. You might maybe be summarizing and saying, oh, this is how much they're selling per category. And this is where you do like exploratory. You do a lot of EDA. Like I mean, it depends on how creative you are at this point. So you have to be very. I mean, you can be very creative, and you'll be able to get a lot of insights from here. And then in some cases, you might build like a machine learning model as a result of your EDA. Maybe if you feel like there's a need for you to solve a major problem. But this is not always the case, and that's why it's in white. And then you can then I mean, like I said, it's I mean, the work of data people is very service oriented. So because of that, we tend to have to like deliver our service back to the business, or the, I mean, whatever stakeholder. So in the case of this, we have to like visualize what we have found uh, in the process of like, trying to prepare our delivery for them. So we have to visualize. Here is also a very, very important skill where we need to really understand like, okay, what is the best way to visualize, what are the best practices and stuff like that. And then you get to the point where you actually do presentation, which now they judge you with like maybe communication. Like, it's not actually judging, but also when you are doing an interview, there is a chance that they are testing you on this, on every of these parts, like depending on the role, not all the roles, like depending on the roles. Now you have different roles. Um, you have different roles, but I mean there are a lot more data roles than this now. But these are like I would say like the foundational roles. I mean there are a lot more roles than this, but these are like the foundational roles. So like the data engineer is basically collecting the data in most cases. So this is just the way it works. So the data analyst is basically like trying to, is the one that's basically closest to the business, especially if it's a business analyst. Is more likely to be closer to the business. And also there are also different types of analysts. You can have a credit analyst, you can have like a finance analyst, you have like a marketing analyst. All this is just like the department where these guys are basically like working in. Now also there is another misconception that is here. So at times you have like business analyst, but it's not analytics. So in some job descriptions, like you see a business analyst that is not doing data. Basically, he's just doing planning. And also you can have a finance analyst that like is just doing planning, not data. So this is like, these are like a little bit of gray areas. But in many cases, you have like business analysts, data analysts that are doing like data. So how a project basically usually goes is that the data analyst meets the business, which is like his team, and just like ask questions like, okay, try to understand their needs in terms of data. They could have some recurring needs like reports and stuff like this. He just basically like tries to get all the needs that they need, and then he's basically trying to source the data. Okay, this data can be found here. It could be like you ask questions here and there to understand where the data is. So when you understand where the data is, typically you can go and meet the data engineer. Now, if you notice, like there's some green, there's yellow, um, and then there's white. So the green and the yellow, and the green basically means like this is definitely what the data, this person has to do. The yellow means like there's always maybe a chance that he has to do it. The white means that he doesn't have to do it. But now this is very opinionated. And also like companies differ from each other. So, but I would like, if I want to like go for any of these roles, I will try to first perfect these greens before I perfect the yellow, before I perfect the white. This is like, you understand, this is just the order that I will go. So like data requirements. So the business guy has to know how to communicate with the business to get all the data requirements from them. And then he will now meet the data engineer to like, tell the data engineer, okay, this is the data we need, and this is where it is. Please, can you help us collect this data? So it's also possible that this guy is also collecting the data, because if it's a very small organization, there's a chance that maybe they don't even have like a data storage. This is why this is in white. They might not have a data storage, and this data analyst is just going to maybe pull data from maybe Instagram or maybe Facebook or something like that, and use the data and not store the data. Or maybe he can also learn to store the data. So because of that, like, yeah, definitely needs to be able to get the requirements from the business. Now, in the data collection, the data engineer does the collection. He pulls data with maybe APIs and all that kind of stuff, crawls sites and all these things, and basically like dumps the data. He cleans the data and then dumps the data into a data storage. So this is like usually the main things that data engineers do. They do more things, but like this is like the main things that they do in a typical data, um, project. So for the data scientist, it's possible that a data scientist is also collecting requirements from the business, because like when you do data science, when you want to build a model, you are basically trying to like also do it for the business. So you have to understand the business, you have to understand what the business needs and all that kind of stuff. But if you have an analyst, maybe you can get it from an analyst, but ultimately you might also have to like collaborate with the business. It's also possible that this data scientist is getting the data himself, but ultimately one of the biggest part of data science is cleaning the data. So he needs to be able to clean the data to a certain level. The only thing is that it might not be as much. So basically, like if he has like a data engineer that's already cleaned the data for him, like he might not need to clean the data that much anymore. So he might just do a little bit more cleaning, and then it's ready. For a business analyst, yes, you still need to also do a bit of data cleaning, yes, or data transformation to get your data to the right shape. And then you do the exploratory data analysis, like we saw in the in that chart. So you do the exploratory, then you can do the machine learning, and then you visualize and you present the data to the business. So in between, the data scientist has to be really strong with machine learning. It has to be really, really strong with machine learning. However, the business analyst does not necessarily need to be very strong with machine learning. You can, the more you can, the better, the more chances to grow in it. So then you have like the different roles. So the different roles and the skills that is required. So basically, for a data engineer, I mean, this is not like a gospel, but I mean, like if you notice, like this is basically going to more technical, and then this is basically going to more soft skill. So that's like from you go more technical from empathy to SQL, and then you go from more soft skill from SQL to empathy. Actually, Python should be Python, R, or Java should be like the most technical, I think. So yes, for the data engineer, he might not necessarily meet with the business at any point because he's not presenting data. He's not like pulling business requirements. He needs to understand the business a bit. He might not necessarily be like doing a lot of statistics. He might also need a bit of BI too, but not that much. But ultimately, he needs to be super technical. If you enjoy being technical a lot, then this is a very good area for you. Python, R, Java, and then SQL. But you have to be extremely good with this. Like you have to be like really, really on point here. Then if you're a data scientist, you basically need to have a bit of empathy because then you are meeting the business. You have to understand the business very well because then if you build a model, it has to align very well with what the business wants. You have to communicate because then you will have to come back to tell the business people like what you are finding, and you have to simplify what sounds to be complex. So your communication has to be really on point, and this is also why you need empathy. And then you have to have like critical thinking. Critical thinking in the sense that statistics is definitely going to help you, but like in between here, you have to like, okay, what is the best logic to use? What is like, you have to do a lot of analytics here, like thinking like, okay, what is the best? How can we get this done? Like, so basically that, and then you need to have, idea of using BI tools because like you visualize your data, but your BI tool, you might not be as good as maybe the data analyst, but doesn't really mean. And then you have to be good with Python, R, or Java. This is like what the proper data science is. For SQL, like data scientists, at times, now I'm not like this is not like gospel, but in some companies, like it might. I cannot even say like in some companies because I haven't really like seen a lot of companies, but I've maybe spoken with a few people and also job posting. You might need like SQL. but it's also maybe like you might not need SQL, maybe, but this is like a very gray area basically. So for your data analyst, you need like, I mean, that's why data analyst, you need to be a bit like, we are kind of like doing a lot of like jack of all trades kind of stuff. So in between, you need to contact the business a lot of times, because like you are the first point of contact. They will bombard you with like a lot of ad hoc requests. Like the data scientist is doing more research topics that maybe it might take him like maybe 1 month, 2 months. I mean, like at times it might take him like 1 month to get to the answer. So he's doing like a lot of research. But the business analyst is like basically doing descriptive analytics, and maybe he has to do his deliveries like maybe like every day, every other day. Like they're asking a million questions. Or ultimately, he can also do the research, like the data scientist. Yes, there are cases where you also do like a bit of research topics. And then you need like, I mean, everything from here down to a bit of statistics. Might not be as heavy as like a data scientist, but you just need a bit of statistics, because you will be doing EDA, you will be doing like, you might be pulling reports and all these kind of things. You might also be going into a bit of machine learning, so you need to like have a bit of statistics, and then you definitely need to be good with a BI tool at least. So and then you have like, SQL. Yeah, definitely you need to have SQL, but not as much as a data engineer. You need to be you need to maybe be efficient in some cases, but if you are doing mainly like ad hoc analysis, then you don't need it that much. So I can mostly talk for a data analyst, right? Because like I'm kind of like revolving like in between, like a data analyst is like doing like, it's kind of, it's like the center point of like so many stakeholders, right? So I mean, like this part is like, I can talk a bit more as I tend towards like, go towards like the two ends to a certain extent, the two ends of these guys and these guys a bit. And so basically this also tells you like the part that the data analyst like can go. So also like the data analyst is basically staying in between these guys. He's interacting with the business team, for instance. It's others. He might have other stakeholders. He gets the information from these stakeholders, like, oh, this is what we need. Then he gets the data and he sources the data, and he basically gives it to this guy. Oh, this guy, please, we need this data, and this is the sources that I can get it from. And then this guy is cleaning the data and getting back to him. He also collaborates with this guy so that they can, like he can maybe pass some knowledge to this guy at times, but this guy might also come and meet these guys, or he can come and meet this guy directly. So basically, the data science guy can meet the business team, or I'm not sure if my mouse is showing. That's why I'm now saying it like individually. Like the data scientist might, meet the business team, or is meeting like the other stakeholders as well. But ultimately, like the data analyst sits down like in the middle, and at times he has to decide, okay, so which work if it's a data science project, you might have to decide, okay, which work do we actually push to the data science team, or he probably will handle it on his own, something like that, or which kind of engineering work should we push to the data engineering team, or I will handle it myself. But with time, you don't necessarily have to, like, if you're coming in as a data analyst, you don't necessarily have to delve into data science or data engineers work. You just need to just do like, you can get in with the basic, and then decide like where would you like to find yourself, like, and also you can even decide to go into business, to the business team. So you can decide not to go into data science eventually. You cannot decide not to be a data engineer, but you can also decide like you want to go into management, for instance. So you can, start having your team, and also you have a lot of business knowledge enough to maybe like go and become a business leader eventually. So this is a path that you can decide to follow. But this is, like I said, it's not gospel truth. Like different things happen. People jump from people can jump from being data engineers to data scientists. It's possible. People can jump from data engineers to being data analysts as well. And then Yeah, so basically, like I said, like we talk more of data analyst. Um, so what kind of skills? Like, I mean, what is the skill that they expect the most? So basically, most of the times, like I mean, this I actually got um, from a source that was using LinkedIn data for 2020. So for most jobs, you need like SQL, like you need like definitely need SQL to be an analyst, to be any kind of data person. You need to understand SQL. You need to understand Excel, but I mean we are still going to get there. Then we need to a BI tool, then Python, R, or like that. So these are like the requirements. And then, how would I personally prepare to be like a data analyst if I had to do it like all over again? Um, First, I mean, like there is Excel. So this Excel, kind of put it gray because I believe that almost everybody might know it. But I mean, if you do not know Excel, it might not be a good place to start. To be very honest, but if you know it, it's fine. Especially if you plan to learn Tableau or Looker, you don't necessarily need to start. I mean, especially when you are preparing on your own, so you don't necessarily need to like put so much energy in learning Excel, because then when you, although you might work with it, but when you learn this Tableau, eventually you would understand how to use Excel. This is what I believe. So you don't necessarily have to learn how to use Excel to eventually know how to use it, and you can learn it on the go when you get into the. But to get to, so basically, I've also arranged this list in the order where I believe that like it will be easier and the fastest way to get in. So when I say the fastest way, that means like if you want to get in and today, you can first start learning SQL, and then maybe you're already applying for jobs. So if you have Excel and SQL, you can already start applying for maybe a role. So and you just need SQL beginner. So SQL beginner and Excel, you can already start applying for a role. Um, and then you can now try to get to understand a BI tool, and then you can start applying for a role, and then you can obviously now become SQL intermediate, and then go into like Python or R and Airflow, and there in this case you even stand a very strong chance. The more you go down, the more you stand a very strong chance to land a data analyst role, and there's more chance that you even start a strong chance to not just be like a junior, but to basically like start as like an intermediate. But the hard skills is not the only skills. So this is very very important. The hard skills is just one thing. The hard skills is just like, okay, this is the tool that you need to use, but ultimately the tool you need to apply it in a certain way to be able to do what you want to do, and this is where the soft skills come in. So the hard skills is not enough. Basically, you can get like the hard skill, but then you now combine it with some of the soft skills, which is now the next part. So if you notice, I kind of also put this in. I put the first and the two and three in bold letters. So basically, this basically signifies that at least you should have this. If you have this, then you can already start applying for jobs like strongly. For data analyst, business analyst, you can strongly, if you have SQL and Tableau, you'd also notice that it kind of aligns with this as well. That it aligns with the fact that SQL is the most demanded in any analyst job. You see SQL is necessary. Excel is necessary. No, not so. They will put it there, but most likely they wouldn't test you on it. And you will be able to, if you can do this too, you'll be able to get by with this. This is what I believe. So if you have plans to learn maybe a BI tool, which you should learn, then you might not necessarily need to learn Excel, out of this world. So also like I said, it's very very much opinionated. So like it doesn't mean it's gospel, but it could definitely be of help. Now in terms of the soft skills that you should learn, the soft skills, and this series is basically going to concentrate more on kind of the soft skills. I might not be able to like present everything here, like, but maybe I'll be able to bring like some other people who might be able to help us with some of these things. Now, the first part of the soft skills is You need to have basic statistics understanding, because you'll be doing a lot of mean, median, mode, and all these kind of things, um, and you have to be very very careful the way you aggregate things at times. You'd also have to maybe understand a bit of outliers and all this kind of stuff. And in between, then you have to understand KPIs, because one of the main things that a data analyst does is like building KPIs. So you have to understand KPIs, how to build KPIs, what is the best like ways, like how do you come up with KPIs, how do you aggregate KPIs, and that's why statistical understanding comes before KPIs. Then in between, you have to understand how to like visualize the best practices. I mean, it's you can learn how to visualize with Tableau and Python, but ultimately, like the best practices of doing it, like is very important, because you know how to do it, but you don't like. I mean, the best way to do it, you might not know. So also, like if you're applying for jobs, the chances is they will give you some data set and they would ask you to apply some of these things, like okay, maybe, or even ask questions like which KPIs do you think should be measured as understanding this business, and how would you aggregate them. So you're already being asked one, two, and then three, basically, like how do you now show it in your dashboard, like what is the best way to show it. So this is best practices of visualization has to be understood properly. And then exploratory data analysis, you have to like try to understand like how to do exploratory data analysis as much as possible, because then you also most likely be you'll be exposed to some data and you have to do some exploratory data analysis. Now you also now need to learn how to present and communicate, and there are a lot more other stuff. And like I said, this series is mainly focused on the soft skills, the more soft skills. But I believe like this is like to get in, these are the basic that you need, and the more that you go down, then you become even like you're not basically like going to be seen as a junior, but maybe you'll be seen as an intermediate, or then you can be seen as a senior. So like I said, like if I mean the technical can easily get you the job, but the soft skills are the ones that might make you like grow in the job, because then you can get the technical and do stuff anyhow, and maybe like you might not apply the right statistical understanding, you might not apply the right metric, and that could maybe lead to problems, like we basically like not make like I won't give much more room for growth. But in independent, like the soft skills is the ones that like the more you master it, the lower you can go with it, the higher you can rank. So if you are very good at presentation, at maybe communication, at planning and stuff like this, then the chances is that you'll be seen as a senior. So then so basically, what can this series be about? So the series can is basically about demystifying some of the ambiguity, and we could discuss some of the data soft skills. So basically, like I've said, and then we could have like a books club. Like I mean, you can learn from different materials, but also like I mean, if you learn from a book, most likely you get more information than you learn from a video. Like the reason why, and I know like I mean video might be prepared and preferred like way to learn, it's faster, but also the idea is it's that speed is where the information is lost. So the speed is people are trying to make like short videos to get you what you need. So in between they are looking like okay, what is really important, they remove some of the things that are not so important. So if you really want to get the I mean all the information, then I mean it would be better to get like a book. And so basically we could also like review different books. So the idea is like okay, if today maybe we decide that we want to talk about like basic statistics understanding, we can maybe like get a book and then we summarize it and we do a slide of it, and then we share it, like okay, this is a summary, this is what I mean we kind of saw in this book and stuff like this. And then here we can also share links. We can also bring like people who are like working as analysts, scientists, data engineers, and even recruiters. So like okay, come and like tell us like okay, come and talk about statistics, or come and talk about like best practices of data visualization. You understand that kind of thing. So here we can first look at our own book and maybe summarize it into a slide, and then maybe the next week we are bringing somebody to come and talk about it, and then we can do individual and group projects. So basically next week we could already start from basic statistics understanding, and yeah, I think this book is a very good one, especially for people who are not from a mathematics background. If you are from a very numeric background, you might not necessarily uh, use it, but I mean it's also very very good. And then we can have questions, suggestions, comments. Sorry, the presentation went so long. Would there be any questions, suggestions, or comments?
One suggestion that I want to say is that, like the data that you showed us, or the visual that you showed us about the required skills,
Yeah.
and you said,
This
oh
one?
no, go back, no, like
Okay, this
the bar charts.
This
So
one.
you said this was gotten from LinkedIn, or you said something like that.
Yeah, it was gotten from it was gotten from a data analysis that was done with LinkedIn data.
Yeah. So I don't know, like maybe in the future, but not now. Like we can do something like this, like
Yeah,
like
I mean
to
as a
actually
project,
confirm
right?
this, or maybe we can do it for probably 2020 or 2021 to just
Yeah.
confirm this.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, because also what we could also use it for is we can use it to um, we can use it to know the trend. Like I mean, ultimately, like things are changing in the industry very much.
Yeah.
So we can, like, for instance, maybe Power BI is like behind Tableau, but these days I'm hearing like Luca. I mean, especially in Germany. So like these days I'm hearing like Luca is like maybe preferred to Power BI. So I mean, if someone is going into the industry, like it might be worth learning Looker than learning Power BI, for instance. So maybe like what you said basically makes sense, because then we can use it to like do some kind of market analysis. Like, okay, what skills should we actually pick up? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No problem.
Would there be any other comments or suggestions or questions? Yeah, silence means yes. Like, I mean, no means there's no question, right? Can I make the assumption?
You can make the assumption.
Okay, so basically, then that means that next week we will start from the basic statistical understanding. Yeah, hopefully we will be able to use it to actually use some kind of business data. And yes, this will be very helpful. The next week also I could also supply.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have a question. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, you for the
Hello. I don't know. It seems like we lost you. We can't hear you.
no.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you made mention of data from Instagram, Facebook, and all.
Yeah.
Now, for most of the companies, are they using something like a primary data or secondary data?
What do you mean by primary data or secondary data? I need to understand.
Yes, I mean maybe the data they obtain directly from the customer. I can categorically say that using the data from Instagram, Facebook, that could be like secondary data because it's an already existing data.
So I mean, what I mean by using, like, okay, for instance, if you are a marketer, for instance, so maybe your company is doing like, look, like you're a marketing analyst, for instance, your company is doing like campaigns. So campaigns can be like when they are doing like advert on Facebook, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you maybe like get the data from Facebook directly. So maybe like they have like Google Analytics that they connect to Facebook or Instagram. So where they kind of get like some data from these sources. So you might, I mean, they might not necessarily store it. This is what I'm saying.
Okay.
You understand? They might not necessarily store it to do analytics with it.
Okay.
You get. So
Yeah.
and also it depends. Like the companies really depends. Like it depends on the company that we are looking at. Like it might be, if it's not really a big company, they might not have a data engineer. You might not
Yeah,
have a
like a
data
startup.
scientist, but you will definitely have a data analyst. This is for sure. If you have a company and they don't have a data analyst, then most likely somebody is doing the work of a data analyst.
Okay.
Like maybe like, because somebody has to be checking the profit, somebody has to be checking like what is happening to the business. So maybe the CEO himself is doing the work of the analyst, most likely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. um yeah. So next week we could basically start from basic statistics understanding, and then I could also share some links to the SQL courses, that SQL Tableau courses. Like I could maybe um, recommend. I was trying to like add them, but like there wasn't so much time to do that already. But I could, yeah. Then also I could share the Google Drive that contains this. I mean, I could share this slides, and so if you have comments like what you think should be added, what should be removed, and maybe even in future, because it's a living document, so like anybody can use the document like to at least have like a bit of information, especially people that are just trying to get into the market. So yeah, that would be very helpful if you can drop comments or opinions, or maybe you can even question like, hey, I feel like maybe if you get in and then you feel like Python is more important, or maybe like it's a different order that it should be, then maybe you can even like, we can think of like, updating the document. So yeah, that is the idea. So we don't have any questions. So if we don't have any questions, then I can stop the recording. And yes, so basically that.